Oh, wait, I got it. I did it. It
You
let
got it.
me. Oh, no, you did it.
I did it.
You did it. Yeah, there you go. It's happening. It's happening. This call is being monitored for quality assurance purposes. Okay. Yeah, so I think, I mean, I feel like what we were thinking was, you know, I'm on my call, I'm hanging out, talking to folks. So I'm going to make a food pantry phone. So, like, I save my referral, and then I say, hey, you know, can I schedule a follow-up with you? And to make this easier, may we follow up with you via text? And so, I mean, at this point, I'd still just be, I don't think we envision this form necessarily being any different. You know, I enter my information. I still want to get the phone number. I would get the email address, of course, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Do we get an email address? We really just need the phone number. But we may want to get a client email or whatever. Anyway, the point is, do this, get my phone number, schedule my date, depending on what the program is. So this, you know, they're going to access it whenever, over the weekend. So I want to schedule it just for the morning of the 17th, follow-up type, like that, or whatever. And I mean, I would assume I'm selecting my service, which is going to inform, you know, what service is populating in that sheet. And then I would guess there's some kind of, like, say, follow-up via text. And so I'm doing that. Then based on this, understanding that a text is getting sent to this number, including the survey, with, you know, regarding this food pantry's need in the morning of the 17th.
Yeah, so, you know, and for me, it just seems like it's a follow-up, and then the follow-up has a method that you choose. So you either follow up by phone, or you follow up by text, or you follow up by email.
Right.
And so those are the options that should be clear here. I mean, and you can collect an email when you do a text follow-up, I guess.
Yeah,
you could collect,
totally.
you know, but it's just a matter of, how do you note it in the system that this is the type of follow-up that I need to conduct? And then that triggers a series of actions by the system.
Okay. That's sort of what Matt and I were assuming you were thinking about. So the first question I would have is, there's a service term listed here. So we know we have this follow-up associated with this service. We need to associate some sort of a survey document with either a follow-up type or the service term. There has to be some sort of an association as to what we're going to send out.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there is nothing on the RTM design side that actually pushes an alert out to EMS. They handle it on their side in terms of when the follow-up survey goes out. Mm-hmm. They actually have a schedule related to that's associated with the referrals, the text referrals. Is that right? Isn't that correct, Matt?
Right.
Right. So I guess Matt Pease and I are still sort of standing, waiting to learn from Jonathan and Tom if EMS is going to have that schedule associated with the follow-up, and how would they do that? Because would you always have a follow-up? Let me back up. There wouldn't always be a text referral that's gone out associated with this SAGE follow-up, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what we've done is we've now removed from EMS any that link or that hook they have that would trigger that follow-up on their side. Mm-hmm. So now the focus is coming back on us. So we need to think through how we would look at a set of follow-up schedules for today. Because the way this works now, of course, there's a human doing this. They're looking at the follow-ups. Now we've got to design an automated process that would look at these follow-ups the way your agents are doing it on a daily basis. And then structure what functions we need to determine what the survey is that needs to go out. How do we communicate that to EMS? because we haven't decided, are we sending them just the name? I think that's their preference, a name or a number of the follow-up. We'd have to send them of course, the mobile number, because they're not keeping your contacts on their side. And if a text referral hasn't gone out, they wouldn't have any record of the contact anyway. So we're kind of in the beginning stages of structuring all of this, and until we understand what you expect the process to be. Now, what you've explained right now, Matt, is good, because at least we have something in our system that tells us on this particular day, for this contact at this mobile number, we've got to send something out. We've got to notify EMS to send something out.
And so I'm going to ask, because I just don't know enough about the technology around this. Because I'm assuming EMS already has, they already have a way to schedule things. There's no way to structure this information, the scheduling information, in a way that passes to EMS immediately, but recognizes the scheduling, recognizes whatever your date and time information are in terms of their scheduling.
Right, but they may not have that API available to us. They may have to develop it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Never mind. No, it's not. I'm kind of asking questions that you've probably already talked about and been asking.
Right. The process we have right now is they have a text referral that we can call. We can push out that referral to them, and it has most of the information in it that's needed for the follow-up, except on their end, when that text referral goes out, for the accounts that have follow-up surveys set up that are automatic based on those text referrals, the service need, they push out a follow-up survey. We had a conversation yesterday with Heart Florida, kind of similar to that. It's an automated way of doing surveys.
Right. But even for that, even for what, EMS, even what they're already doing, I just don't understand how they're not taking into account that, I guess that they're not doing, it's more customer service. Is what they're doing now more customer service based? I just don't understand how you're scheduling something to go out without any information being input anywhere as to whether or not this person would have conceivably been able to contact or access service based on the specific service they've been referred to. Unless, again, it's just a customer service thing, in which case you could just send it out right away and it'd be like your IVR, hey, was the person you talked to nice or whatever?
I think it is, I don't know at this point. I haven't looked at all the follow-up surveys, especially the ones that are coming out of Atlanta. They may just be customer service.
And they're all immediate? Linda, they're all immediate? They are not scheduled? They are all immediately sent after the conclusion of the record, after the close of the record?
No, with the EMS user account that is separate from us, it's their account with the 211, the EMS account. They have a certain number of days. Now, we do send a certain number of days when we send out the text referral. However, I believe the setting is on their side. Correct, Matt?
Yeah, it's scheduled, but it's scheduled but standardized, right?
Yes, it's standard for each text for all text referrals. Yes, all text referrals get them.
Right. So I can say, but if I'm setting it to 2 days, anything's going out after 2 days, whether or not the service will access or a day.
Now, we do not have a relationship between the service and what we would consider the follow-up data form, the questions and answers. I believe there's just a generic one that goes out. But there was talk earlier in the week when we had our call with Prevention Pays that they were going to be able to associate follow-up of their surveys with their keywords, which is utilities, rent, food, whatever those are. But that's very different from, it's different from what you're talking about. What you're talking about is having a particular survey that goes out triggered by us on our side that's alerting Prevention Pays that here's the phone number, here's the contact ID, here's a code or a name of a survey from Cleveland, push that out and push it out today.
Right. Well,
it's not already doing that for the survey? I mean, I know
No.
it's not doing it for follow-ups, and I know it's not doing it scheduled. At least not,
No, right now
I don't know what they are doing then.
there is no API that we can call to push out a survey. Right now, it's based on the survey is based on a reaction to a text referral that comes from RTM Designs. So we'll push a referral for food food pantries out today. They've got all the information collected, and then some number of days later, a survey will go out to that same phone number, and that survey will come back to us.
Just solely based on the fact that a referral was sent via this mechanism.
Yes.
Right. It doesn't matter what happened on that transaction. It's just like someone's in one room, they press a button that they can talk. They talk to someone for half an hour and press a button that signals a light to go off in another room across the country, which makes a person press another button who has no idea what happened in that half-hour interaction in that room. They just know a button was pressed that caused the light in their office to go on to make.
All we know is that a referral for food pantries got text phone number, and then 3 days later, 5 days later, out pops a follow-up survey that says, "Hello, how was whatever the question is."
Right, but does it take into account that the referral is for food pantries, or does it take into account that a referral was made and that it was?
Latter. There is right now.
Just that it was made. Period.
Right. Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm. Yeah, because go ahead, sorry.
Oh, that's right. But the conversation earlier this week we had with Prevention Pays was that they now can structure, or they're planning to put into place a structure where the surveys can vary and they can go into particular buckets. And those buckets are associated with keywords like utilities, food, rent, and those are defined by you with Prevention Pay, not with us.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So that would be a component of what we're talking about, I think.
Right.
Potentially. That was one of the pieces. Yeah, we were not sure how that would.
I'm so confused about. I think it just seems like everything is starting with Prevention Pays and not starting with, because I'm not sure what I would do with the keyword piece of it unless the client started with a text.
And you have that if the client had started with if there is no record in Prevention Pays with this contact, particular text referral. And the reason that is, Diane, is that Prevention Pays has not given us anything we can call to say, here's a follow-up survey and push it to them.
Right. They're just a method of transport here. Do you know what I mean? Everything is originating by you, and they just have to deliver it.
Well, yes, for this integration we have with them, but there's all kinds of other things that Prevention Pays does related to texting that have nothing to do with text referrals. There's a whole libraries and libraries and libraries of things that they do. And they work with Andar and texting out requests for funding, and it's apparently very sophisticated way of identifying who gets what text message to generate the highest dollar. So there's all kinds of other things that they do.
But it's originating with Andar, not originating with Prevention Pays, right?
I don't know exactly.
It typically originates from Prevention Pays. Prevention Pays system is set up as a scripting-based system, so they have all these different scripts that they set up for all these different texting campaigns, so to speak. So for the follow-up surveys or surveys, for us to be able to trigger one from them, we've got to have an API that we call from them to say, hey, here's a transaction ID, here's a phone number, here's whatever else relevant information we need to send to get it pushed out. And they have to be able to receive that, and they have to have some sort of scripts set up on their end to be able to know what to do whenever that comes in. And what they do is they actually keep your survey questions in their side of the script, and they just push the actual question IDs and answers IDs that were selected back to us, which then fills out a data form and saves it in Refer. So
now there's willingness on on their part to do that, to create that feedback. Okay.
There is. Okay. Yeah, we're working with them on creating that. My biggest question is, how does it get triggered from Refer? How does Refer say, all right, call this new API that Prevention Pays has built and send this information to trigger a follow-up survey or a survey to be sent out on X day and time? That's the biggest holdup is, do we do it when you save the follow-up? Do we put another button here on the follow-up form that says send text survey as well? Is there going to always be a referred service? Do we care? And then what follow-up form survey? If this is food pantries, you may have one survey for food pantries. For shelters, you may have a completely different survey. So we need to identify somehow where you're triggering the survey, which survey form the person should be sent to fill out via text.
And then what outcomes can be placed back within the follow-up outcomes section?
Right, our side, and that's, we can control that based on either the way the question's structured, or we'll do it within the lookup module. I mean, there are ways that we can handle this and to know which pieces of information that are coming back on that survey have to populate fields other than what goes into the data form with just a straight question and answer. So there's a need to put an outcome in here. You'll be able to dictate which answers to which questions populate the follow-up outcome.
Okay. So, starting from where Matt started then, how can we help facilitate the answers to some of those questions? Because I agree with what, Matt's shown so far. This is what I would see as the process. Do you pick a form here? I mean, we don't have that set up, but is that what you see us doing next? Like, how do you see that flow working?
That would be a good thing, yes, where if it's possible that the agent would know at that point which one of your forms is to be used for the follow-up.
Right.
Can you default to one so that the specialist does not have to pick?
I'm sorry?
Can it default?
Yeah, we can default one, or if you want to decide, later down the road that you have more than just one, we need to make sure we can accommodate for that, because we expect people to have multiple survey forms, not just standardized survey for everything.
Or link it to. Oh, go ahead.
Right. Are you going to get more restrictive and have a follow-up survey that's associated with the service that in this follow-up? So we need a back-end structure to handle that, probably in the so when you create the data form, in addition to saying that it's a follow-up data form, you want to say that it's linked to this particular service term.
Now, what does the follow-up type have to do with any of this? I don't know how other people are using that, or if it should be linked to.
Basically, the follow-up type is just more so you can determine that, this follow-up was because of this not specific service need, but, maybe it's just in this category of needs, like immediate health and safety concern. So that's the type of follow-up you're doing. Otherwise, you could have it blank, or it could be a tech survey follow-up, or it could be just your standard follow-up type. What we'd want to do when we receive the survey back in is perform the follow-up and mark it as completed or performed with an action and follow-up results, basically.
Yeah, because I would be looking for, I mean, I know type is in addition to this, but I mean, you'd want to know the methods that were used, like how many times you sent an email follow-up, how many times you marked it for a phone follow-up, how many times was it a text follow-up. I think like the different methods would be helpful to sort of monitor those, if that's possible.
How many times within a contact, or just how many times for this quarter did we mark?
Yeah, for a defined period of time.
Okay. Okay, so we'd have a method associated with with the follow-up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what, you know, Matt was sort of driving at right in the beginning, because that phone number and that email, I mean, maybe you want to use that as backup to the text. I mean, the email as backup to the text or something like that. So putting a client's email doesn't necessarily mean you would send that email. So I'm just thinking about what that user interface sort of looks like, maybe.
Yeah, to both indicate but also record the method of
right. Yeah.
follow-up. Yeah.
And we're still back to having a process on our side that on a particular day looks at this table, this set of follow-ups, and says, "Oh, here's what to do to go out today." And I think that's the question that Matt and I have on our side, how we're going to structure something, because as you know, as they say, right now it's triggered by an action in the user interface.
Yep. Yeah, that scheduled time is also kind of going to be problematic rather than the date. Perhaps, I don't know how you.
Well, I don't know how the time would actually be relevant for a text, because
right.
Prevention Pays care of that. You said on your side over there, they know not to send something out at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, based on where the person's located. At least they try not to. I mean, they have a methodology they use to make sure that it goes out within reasonable hours.
Yeah, then we'd have to. Yeah, so the specialist then you shouldn't be able to set that with the expectation that it would be delivered at the time you select.
Right.
Exactly. Right. That if the methodology for the follow-up is text through a survey, time really wouldn't be relevant.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter as much as with a call.
Right.
Okay. Well, I see two things here that are still questions for us. One, deciding on our side how we would initiate this. Now, is it possible that a follow-up for today, this afternoon, could be scheduled this morning? We have to determine when we would notify EMS, Prevention Pays, to say, here, there's a set of follow-ups that need to go out. If we do it first thing in the morning and only pick today's, and something gets scheduled later in the morning for this afternoon, those are questions that we'll have to think about.
No, I don't want something that's sitting there just queuing a database and then sending things out on an interval. What we need to do is get back with Prevention Pays and make sure that we can send in the scheduled date and then indicate whether the text should go out on the, just let them, that's when the survey should be sent. And
fine with me. I mean, pushing it out on their side.
Set the trigger on the follow-up saving. Having another app just sitting out there reading through the follow-ups table, looking at these dates, and then that's just problematic. It's going to be a lot more automated if we save the follow-up after everything's been set, then call Prevention Pays, give them the follow-up survey name, the phone number, and then the follow-up date of when the follow-up should go out. And they should be able to work with that.
Okay, but they're going to have to give us that API to do that.
But they're having to build it anyhow, so we might as well make the specifications like that to begin with.
Okay. That's
But our
easy.
problem is how do we know which survey to send if we don't have a list here to pick from the surveys?
Yeah, we have to
Are
ID
we wanting to map to the follow-up type, that a specific follow-up type always goes to this survey, or do we want to have a list of surveys and then just have a default one or something they can pick on this form?
You can associate data forms as a follow-up data form, correct? Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But on the performance side.
Yeah, currently they only show up on the performed form when you're performing the follow-up.
Is that do you want to have that kind of flexibility where the specialist or the agent selects the form to go out?
That's always been problematic when this.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like you'd think, but.
Well, and that goes back into the quandary of how do we associate a form with a particular follow-up, and then that goes back to, well, really the only thing we have to go from here is the follow-up type and create some sort of mapping between the types.
Or the selected service.
Well, even with the selected service, we'll have to come up with some sort of, category type mapping system where we have these survey names that are mapped to these particular service terms, not a condition filter that we could put on the actual, because we don't put condition filters to global service terms, only to sites and agencies and services at sites. So they've come up with a completely new way of mapping that.
Yeah. I mean, the easiest thing.
How are your surveys going to be determined? I mean,
I think we need a universal one to start. I think anything else is too complicated. I can see different funders and people wanting different things, but I would like to see a universal form at first.
That would simplify it quite a bit. If we had a universal form, then once we save the follow-up, regardless of type and regardless of service, then as long as we know that maybe we put a, checkbox on here, send survey to text. When they save the follow-up, then that triggers it as long as that's selected to send the text survey. And then we just send out the generic survey name to EMS text and the date, and it goes from there.
Right. Yes. I mean,
how likely is there multiple follow-ups in a single contact?
Another good question.
Because we're going to have to identify. I think we do send the follow-up ID along with the text referral. Do we not, Matt? Or maybe not.
I have to double check. I don't think so.
Okay, because if there are multiple follow-ups in here and the survey is going to come back in for this contact, and we'll have to know which follow-up to actually update with an outcome.
And we envision, let's say there's 5 different taxonomy codes in your follow-up service list.
Mm-hmm.
The specialist has to pick one of those, save, and then if they want to do another one, they pick another one and save. Is that right? Because each of these would trigger a text sequence, right?
Yes, each follow-up would.
Each taxonomy.
So you don't highlight more than one service in the list and save a single follow-up for multiple services?
I didn't think you could.
So, so this is the question. This is what I was actually just going to ask about. Is because, on the one hand, to the one end that is completely dissimilar to the conversation you had with Prevention Pays earlier this week, we are talking about a generic form. On the other hand, that is more similar. This is why I kind of was like, oh, well, there's a component of this that's similar to that. You would still want to somehow reflect what the follow-up was for within that generic form. Even though you're always asking the same set of, like, you're asking the same questions in the same structure every time. If I'm doing 2 follow-ups for the same person, one for food and one for electric, I would want to somehow pass through the fact that asking about the food and asking about the electric, not just 2 completely generic follow-ups. Did you get whatever service?
Getting back to the way that you've drawn, Matt, your text follow-up tree. I don't know if you could pop that up, or you want me to pop that back up, but that's the question.
You have it up already, right?
Yeah, I do. Somewhere.
Also,
that's right.
I can switch it to.
Think about the perform side of it as well. When you're looking at a follow-up that's being performed, now it's being performed by an automated text. And we have questions and answers that are coming back into us. Which pieces of that survey do we actually use to populate fields in the perform side of the follow-up? There's an action, there's a note. We need some rules as to how you relate this particular question in this follow-up survey that's being texted back into us. And
well, I'm just thinking about the outgoing one, staying back with what Matt's saying about it is customized in the sense that it has to recognize that specific problem or need.
Not customized in a way that the specialist is essentially, it's not the form the specialist is choosing. The specialist is performing essentially that, determining what the follow-up is, how they would normally do it now, which is just by selecting what they're following up on.
Right.
So they're not selecting like a different form per thing in what the model we're envisioning. I mean, I understand how you could have all kinds of whatever. We've never talked about having multiple follow-up forms to start with. It's always going to be the same form, but the specialist is, in essence, indicating something that is in some way customizing that form, which is the...
And that would be, those questions and answers would be associated with a distinct data form or survey, both within the Artium Design System and in the Prevention Pays system.
Are we, I mean, did we look, I mean, are you able, Linda, to accommodate the follow-up tree that we've shown by what we're talking about now? I mean, is this doable? Because I'm having trouble picturing how this would be functioning within refers data form. I see it easier with Prevention Pays and the logic that they traditionally used in texting. So
unfortunately, with the questions, you know, did you receive help from the agencies 2 and 1 told you about? You've got a dynamic option in there, and in the brackets. Data forms, as you know, are static questions, static answers. Currently in ReferNet.
But this, I mean, Prevention Pays should be taking over from here and being able to.
We've got to map.
But they don't know the name of the agency. They won't know
we don't know the name of the agency right now. That's a whole other conversation in the follow-up. But
no, what I'm saying is they wouldn't know what agency to plug into there, even from their side.
Yet.
It's even scripting it. It would have to be dynamically generated on our side because we have the referral record.
Right. So even if but you don't, right now, you don't have a way to follow up based on the agency, based on the service, right? Just based on the taxonomy term.
Right.
So that's another conversation, I think, but the low-hanging fruit would be just to be able to follow some type of decision tree for a specific, taxonomy term. Like being able to insert just that dynamic piece there, which is passed along, which you would just pass along to Prevention Pays, right? And they would just insert as part of their logic tree.
Maybe. I don't know how they would work it on their side. The thing is, all we can, from our perspective, what we'll be sending them is the name or code associated with its follow-up survey, a data form. And they have that same exact form on their side with questions and answers, structured in a way where they can text out.
But if you're sending them the date, why not also send them the taxonomy term?
Well, we certainly could, but they have to be able to process it on their side. There's nothing preventing us from doing any of this. But we don't have a receptor, and we can't control how they structure it. I mean, Diane, we could actually send them out the questions and answers and dynamically generate them from the referrals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what they would do on their end in terms of getting it transferred into a text that they push out. I mean, we could actually dynamically create this with questions and answers, plugging in the agency name, plugging in the service term, the name of the person if you collected it. We could certainly dynamically push that out to them. But right now, they haven't given us a mechanism to do that. All they have given us right now is the ability to push out a text referral. And they send us back an automated survey. I mean, I'd be delighted if we could do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, does Tom understand what we're looking for enough to be able to comment as to whether he could or couldn't do it? Because I feel like if he has the ability to take in a text message that contains a keyword and follow a decision tree, this would be similar logic, just coming in from you instead of via the client text message.
Well, in this scenario, if we did it dynamically from our side, which is, I like that idea. I had that idea already, but what we would need from Prevention Pay side is they'd have to have a listener, a receiver, an API that says, okay, we're sending in a question. They don't care what question it is. Here's the answers. They don't care what the answers are. And then they have to send us back that question and one of the answers that was filled out. And then we have to receive it into a program, which then determines the logic of where it goes from there. So we have to build the entire survey on our side and all the logic of the decision tree completely on our side. And they just kind of have this listener that's sitting there waiting for a question and answer set, which then pushes back the question and answer to us. Then we decide which next question and answer to move to from there.
What's interesting to me is and Todd, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. People are building these in Prevention Pays all the time. So it's almost like something from Refer just has to trigger that build in.
But the thing is what they're building in Prevention Pays are completely static. There are no dynamic items populated in the surveys. They're not putting in agency names. They're not putting in problem needs or subcategories or aliases. They just don't have that capability with their current scripting. Their scripts, they have to hard write every script that they create for surveys.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even if we could get it going without, I'm just trying to think, it just does, it would be meaningless to the client if you don't have that problem need listed. So I don't know how you get around.
All Prevention Pays is currently used to doing is they do have decision trees, but every question and answer is completely static, and whether or not they're sending those back to us is a completely different story. And for us to be able to receive it back, we've got to have the questions and answers identically to the way they have them set up in their script in our data forms currently. If we do it this way where it's dynamic, it's a completely different process. We have to create a different structure internally, and Prevention Pays they're still having to create a different API regardless for our other people who want to send out follow-up surveys more automated. But this level of complexity really gets it up there where there are so many dynamic items trying to be pushed in depending on which questions are answered.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think, there are some places where it doesn't have to be dynamic, but it certainly has to be dynamic right here. You've got to have that in there, otherwise it's not meaningful. I don't know how to get around that. And it just seems like a shame that, the controls of this, like how you navigate through this tree, are already available in Prevention Pays, right? Todd, you could create something like this, but for the dynamic piece.
Right. If it didn't include the agency name or the taxonomy name, then no, you could just make this easily.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it wouldn't build anything useful.
Well,
right.
One of the question at the top, from my perspective, what you'd have to do is build multiple surveys and have one with its own errors problem, each with its own errors problem. That solves that. You just have multiple forms, and they'd all be redundant.
Right.
And we can handle that in ReferNet as well, and there'd just be a code associated with it, and we just push the code to Prevention Pays, and they'd send out that one with that whatever the errors problem was in the first question. However, when we get down to the agency level, nobody knows. Prevention Pays doesn't know which agency.
Yeah, I would say let's take the agency piece off the table for now.
Okay.
I'd take it off the table. It'd be great to have, but
Let me back up though. Let's say that in the perfect world, we could send out a code that says for a data form that indicates this is the one that you want to send, and there are 100 that we've defined. There's an errors problem or a service need or a subcat, and included in that message we push out to Prevention Pays. We could put in the agency name from the referral. We know what it is. Could Prevention Pays at that point structure their message to be dynamic for that second question? We successful. Let's say, the third question. Did agency one name help? If our team designs could actually give them a list of agency names. But I don't know on their side if they could actually sort through those and create their text messages to accommodate that kind of dynamic information.
right. And from my, just from my perspective, trying to get something off of the ground, even like in a year, we have a couple problems. The first one is that going back in RTM, you guys don't have that set in your system for follow-up yet. You don't have it based on agency. You have it based on taxonomy term only, right? So then you've got an issue with the outcomes and putting that back in, right? You've got to restructure the way follow-up is done. Am I right? Entirely. Right? Because you're not going by agency, right? Am I wrong? Hello?
Yeah, the follow-ups are based on either the transactional record or a piece of that transaction, which would be a service follow-up.
Right. Just as far as the user interface is concerned, I'm not sure what's happening over there. If we just look at it like, okay, the first step would be trying to see, Linda, your idea was interesting of just trying to have multiple surveys. Would be a way kind of around that, I guess. And then, but there would be an awful lot of them. So I'm not sure how that would work. But I think if we can get past this piece, but you got to have the taxonomy term or the problem need category or something in here.
Well, you're limited if we use the errors problem, because at least that's a
that's
number.
True. That's true.
high level, but it also helps with reporting.
That's true. I mean, Matt, what do you, I mean, I know we've talked about like the good and the bad about the agency name a lot, but we really didn't sort of hash out.
Don't we have to include the agency name though? Because what if somebody is referred to the two agencies with the same taxonomy? How do you distinguish between which one worked and which one didn't?
You don't at this point in Refer system. It's only was the need resolved, not who resolved the need for you.
But if they answer yes to one and no to the other, if we send them if we're only going to send them one because there's only one need, but they were referred to two agencies,
right?
What do you decide on this? What do you send them?
You send them the need, like food pantry. Did you receive food pantry help from any of the agencies we told you about?
Okay, so the result of that is they either got help or they didn't, but that's where it ends.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's where it's at now. But like it's becoming a bigger question, especially with the funding for the agency portal and getting into more agency level work. That will be really, really helpful to be able to report out on some of this, not even just in a texting standpoint, but when generally performing follow-ups, just as part of the follow-up module. Which is why that's kind of the bigger question, is it's just not accounted for.
What we do have in the database is the equivalent of a status or an outcome associated with each referral. It's part of the food pantry feedback that comes back in. And right now it's single because people are usually in hands-on Central Ohio, they're referred to one pantry. That's where they're scheduled. So the database structure is kind of there to handle that. There is I think a status or an outcome associated with each referral, which would be agency specific in this use case, what we're talking about, what's on the screen right now. So, but there needs to be a mechanism in place to query the consumer about each one of these agencies.
And will they recognize it? That's the thing that Matt and I keep going back. I mean, we bumped into this problem years ago with them. I went to Catholic Salvation Army. Like they just don't. Sometimes they recognize it, sometimes they don't. We don't know what'll happen. And that's a lot to have somebody go through if you refer them to 3 or 4 or 5 different agencies for a bunch of different services. Like, what does that look like for the consumer? That's kind of crazy, too. So,
I think you'll get a lot of stops coming in. Stop sending me these things.
Yeah, that's why I was like, well, maybe for the first pass, while thinking about how follow-up is executed, because I really think we need to move maybe more toward the model of the use case that you're describing in Columbus for everything overall, but that's a little bit more heavy lift. I would like to resolve, the question of is it the problem need that we would want to send? Is it the taxonomy term? And how can we accomplish that with Prevention PACE?
Right now, I think using their existing, well, I can't speak for Tom, but from my perspective, you would have to define a different survey for each AIRS problem. Even though all the questions and all the answers could be identical, it would need to have that question at the top would have to have a specific AIRS problem name in it.
But then we have the problem with connecting that back to the follow-up outcome when the follow-up is not by problem need, it's by individual taxonomy term.
Well, that goes back to within the follow-up having an association between the service term and the name of this data form that has the AIRS problem in it.
But I don't think it necessarily needs to be a data form. That's where I'm still stuck. If we flip back, I'm going to flip back to you, Matt, for just a second.
But where do we put the questions and answers?
Right, you don't. Aren't they in Prevention PACE?
Why can't Prevention PACE?
Yeah, can't they stay in Prevention PACE?
You don't want to store this at all in ReferNet. That these questions and answers were filled in. You don't want it stored as a data form that you can pull back up in this transaction.
No,
we want follow-up outcomes associated with the answers.
Yep.
Well, see, Tom's expecting us to store the questions and answers.
Why, when he's already storing a bunch of them
He
now?
already has all these surveys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our customers like to do reporting inside of ReferNet on the surveys that come back to them, as well as doing external reporting through Prevention Pays. I mean, it's redundantly stored in both sides for reporting more than anything else.
Yeah.
But in this case, it wouldn't be redundant. I mean, he'd be storing actual answers to questions. You would be storing the outcomes associated with those answers, and we would more than likely be doing the reporting and refer and not Prevention Pays, because it's the outcome we're interested in, not necessarily.
But you're not going to be able to see their answers. You're not going to be able to see the answers without Prevention Pays. Whereas in ReferNet, you could just go into the transaction, open up the data form, and there's everything already filled out.
Right, but some of it, some of it is what's good enough, right? And what's good enough for us in Refer is the outcome for the follow-up. Everything else can be endemic to Prevention Pays for us. We can get reporting out of that.
This already exists. We already have technology. We don't have to build anything.
Okay.
This is the follow-up surveys work.
Okay.
Right,
well, I mean,
we already received surveys in, but, like I said, we receive them in as data forms. They've got to be set up as a data form currently. Right. So it's changing the whole scope of how we communicate Prevention Pays and how we handle surveys. So if we say, okay, we're not recording any of the survey data coming back, they're not pushing any questions and answers back to us, they're just handling the full survey on their end, and then at the end of their survey, they send something back to us that closes out the follow-up, indicates a performed action that was taken and an outcome, maybe some follow-up notes to go with it, something along those lines. And then the only access you have to those questions and answers would then be through Prevention Pays interface.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, if the technology already exists and you just want us to sit it, house it in Refer and that be redundant, that's fine. I just know that for me, there's this huge disconnect between that follow-up form and the follow-up outcome.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the outcome than I am in the answers on the form.
Yeah. Okay, bring up the perform follow-up. We have a schedule up now. Bring up the follow-up.
Guys, I gotta drop off now because I gotta get on another call. But thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Actually got a call we need to get on. Well.
Yeah. Shall we pick this up on another day then?
Sure.
All right, because I know Linda and I have a 12 o'clock call and I've got a 2 o'clock call. Let's see here. Are you going to be available anytime on Monday?
Yeah, let me check my calendar here. Just one second. I believe I have a bunch of time on. Yeah, Monday I'm really available all day.
I'm pretty available all day Monday as well. I'm not sure about Linda.
Let me look at my calendar. I've got a 12 o'clock. Other than that, I'm okay. So from 12 to 1:30, I probably I'm open. I'm busy from 12 to 1:30, but other than that, yes, I'm open.
We want to try to shoot for like maybe 9:30 or 10 on Monday. Pick back up on the conversation, and we can have our conversations based on what we've talked about today, and then we can go from there on Monday morning.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send out. You want me to send out an invite for like 9:30?
If you don't mind, that'd be great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's no problem.
That perform follow-up to figure out where we populate it.
Right. No, I got you. Okay. No, that makes sense. I'll set up. Yeah, that way I can also put together some kind of just example that we can use. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Great. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks both of you. I know that I just any of my frustration tends to originate more from Prevention Pays and the conversations we have with them in the past than you guys.
Okay.
Well, we know we have all the capabilities to do what we're talking about and discussing.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit different from the way we currently are set up with Prevention Pays.
Right with them. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah.
But we'll figure it out, and as long as Prevention Pays is able to accommodate this new structure and format of sending out the surveys and receiving the outcomes only, then we should be fine. And like Diane says, it may be a year from now before we're actually into testing the product, but hopefully not. Like to get this going as soon as possible. But yeah, I look forward to speaking again more on Monday about it. Linda and I will discuss it in more detail as well. So thank you again for your time today, and we will speak Monday.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, man. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome.
Thanks, have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.